Every human enters an age where there's a necessity to leave a legacy, to leave something of importance, to have something that can remind us that we can be great if we choose to be great. For me, it was this boat. I found something that had old bones, but I knew should not be disregarded for many, many reasons. We ended up purchasing the boat as is. It had enough issues. The fortunate part is that the engines had just been rebuilt. They had maybe 100 hours on them. And we really, really valued that. So we took that as an asset, got into the boat, purchased it, started looking around and realized that while it had old bones that we thought could be resuscitated in a way, it didn't have much meaning as far as what a modern yacht should look, feel, flow like. The second realization was that as an individual, I didn't have the experience to do that on my own. And so the first project became to find a designer that could match up my dreams and aspirations of what this yacht should look and feel like and flow like, and turn that into a reality. I looked into designers and I tried to find a designer this wasn't their first project or their first 112. And we found Destry Dar. And Destry had done, I think, 6 at that time. And she immediately had great ideas. So we felt very, very comfortable, and we moved forward with sort of a principal part of this, which was the environmental impact that we were going to have by refitting a yacht. And it's not just the products or the materials that we're using or the way they're manufactured, but it was also sound and treating sound as pollution. And I have a love of records and analog music, and I wanted to bring that into my yacht. We looked at noise as pollution, and we looked at music as feeding the soul. And so how do you marry the two in an environment that's essentially pretty loud, and on a boat, especially on an older boat, where we didn't have sound attenuation, whether it's below or above us, and would allow us to have an environment that's in essence a quiet enough level to where noise wasn't a pollution, and a good enough environment to where I could play an analog record and enjoy it as a peaceful moment that it can provide.
One of the biggest things was the ceilings, which I always say is the largest real estate on a boat and can make the biggest impact. You walk in and the ceilings not only were dark, which really becomes heavy and lowers the ceiling overall. But not only that, but the ceilings were actually much lower than they are now. So that was one of the first things to do. Is we came in and we just took everything down to see how far we could go. And we did. We took them up as high as we could go, which then we had to see what we could do with the supplies and the returns for the HVAC. It wasn't until after we did that we start to relocate everything, really, all of the supplies and returns. And I think at that point is when it evolved to all of the sound attenuation and redoing all of the HVAC systems that you chose to do quite a tremendous amount of work on.
It changed the space drastically. I thought that was a great move. And with the AC, realizing that while before these units were run out of the doghouse and sort of all the return was central and down the passageway on the port side, now we divided this in quadrants. And so each quarter of the room has its own supply and return. That also allow us to put smaller units, which made less sound. It allow us to baffle those units and to add soundproofing, not just in ceilings and walls, but also through the baffling system. But on a refit basis, you killed it. We have a lot of things here that are absorbing sound as opposed to reflecting sound. And then we did that through products, which really was all you guys' research, which how do we get to create an environment to where we can make that a topic of discussion when people are on the boat? And your research on the products that you did allows me to do that. But the approach you and I took is that the addition of every one of these little things will be meaningful, especially the way we treated water. Right, aboard this boat, this is our drinking water. We use no plastics, but we made rocket science how we purify this water, how we add back minerals to this water before us to drink it. But With the products themselves, like when I gave you really a lot of pressure to find things that were environmentally proper, what was that like for you?
It's always a challenge to find higher end materials that are eco-friendly. But a lot of manufacturers are starting to introduce new materials that are higher end. We used wool carpet down below, and we used, all of your wall coverings are a natural product. All of your wood, we went to the first time we've ever done a water-based finish. Our glasses are recycled glasses. The Cambria quartz and silestone quartz is a sustainable product. Our Italian linens are all eco-friendly. Where we couldn't, we at least tried to go with companies that had sustainable practices. So wherever we could, we did as much as we could.
A lot of how this project developed dealt with my inexperience. And so in talking to you, you pitched to me the importance of creating sort of my sacred space where my wife and I could enjoy. And my request to you was, can we do the same for the crew? So at least I can sit around and know that I didn't send them somewhere to wait for my next request. I'm enjoying myself, and during their off time they can do the same.
One of the first questions I always ask my clients is how they use the boat, or how they plan to use the boat. Number one, you didn't intend to charter. Number two, you don't dine in the galley. You planned to eat in the Flybridge, eat on the aft deck, eat in the formal dining. Another very important aspect is that this particular boat doesn't have the full walkarounds. If they were going to stay out of your main salon, they would need to go up through the Flybridge into the pilot house or through the port or starboard entries into the galley. What my suggestion was at that point was creating a door, and I think this space does end up being a very soothing space, and that along with all of the sound attenuation that was incorporated as well.
It's really great to know that they have their own space, they can enjoy, they can spread their wings. My conversation with the crew as we were trying to pick a permanent crew, which is so hard nowadays, we also want to get them excited about being on this boat. And so our promise to them is, look, 2 weeks a year, I'm going to need all the staterooms, including the VIP. Your task was, how do you turn that from a crew quarter into a VIP quarter? And it's stunning. The crew absolutely loves it. They can't believe it. They're sitting in the best room on the boat. And yet it converts from the crew quarter into a queen stateroom. But anybody that comes and looks at the boat, they love that room.
They're great size beds. They're normal twin size beds.
Oh, for the crew, yeah.
When they convert, they're perfectly comfortable. They're larger than many crew size beds.
There is a time within any project like this or anything that deals with design that the designer has to understand how it is that they're going to make you happy, what it is that you actually want. I knew that I was interested in mid-century because I liked the lines of it. It was geometric to me, and I fell in love with everything that was mid-century, including the personas behind it, the geniuses behind it. Eames, Ponzi, Nakashima, Noguchi, Miller, they all started to have a higher purpose. All of this started to have a higher purpose for me. And I think you should touch on that. I think you should kind of expand on how it is that you took this, me wanting to make everything on this boat meaningful.
I was worried that it wouldn't be welcomed on a yacht. So I did want to kind of taper it a little bit. And I was very happy when you did say that you wanted everything to be purposeful, that you wanted everything to be authentic. And I remember the very first pieces that you mentioned to me were these Eames chairs. It was you that recommended the Noguchi cocktail table and the Nakashima conoid dining table and chairs. The HVAC grills have that linear design, which we mimicked in the design of the stair wall, which also has function because it is a lighting installation as well. So everything does have a purpose and a function. So everything needed to be authentic. I was very happy about that.
When I walk people through this boat and I tell them about every piece, it's literally every step. We started into the boat. You look to the right, there's a 1550s map of the world. One of the first of the world is actually the original printing was a few decades earlier. It was reprinted in 1550 and then 1575. We have the 1550 version. You walk a little further, you start talking about the Eames chairs. You walk a little further, you start talking about, or the Noguchi table. You talk a little further, there's a 1972 Thorens. Mark 125 Mark II was rebuilt for our boat. You walk a little further, we have a table by George Nakashima. A little further, another map showing California is separated and trying to explain to people as to why people felt that way. You walk a little further, you get into a galley that was built as a commercial kitchen. We value food, both Italian and Japanese. Extra refrigeration, everything is stainless steel. We did hire chefs to come in here and help us design that originally, where to put everything. You took everybody's input and gave us that. They approved it, and that's how we went. Everything was a collaboration, and no one ever felt like they were above everybody else. I'm very thankful for that, and that, I think, flowed very well and worked out very well.
Thankfully, you were a very involved owner, and you sent me a lot of inspiration photos. Inspiration of your travels. You sent me a few photos of, I think it was someplace you stayed in Japan. There were Japanese rock gardens where they had the raked sand in different geometric shapes, and they reflect your wife's Japanese heritage. So I thought they were perfect to bring in on some materials. Also, we can see those on the new headboard design that we completely changed in the master stateroom, because it was a very dated design on the original boat. So we changed the entire headboard wall and ceiling. And then working from that, we came up with another design for the queen headboard. Again, using a more linear mid-century design for that wall. And while we're talking about the queen, you also told me a very meaningful story about the meaning of cranes in the Japanese culture. So we took one special wall in each room to do a special wallpaper. Another special piece going down the stairs in the foyer is the kimono. And that was a challenge because we needed to find a way to hang it on a boat where there's lots of movement. So I loved incorporating all of those different aspects together.
I'll tell you what I appreciated about that. It's not like you're walking down the stairs and all of a sudden you feel like you're in Japan. But you feel like you're in a space that's honoring another culture, but they're not out of place. It's not all of a sudden it doesn't belong here. We ended up selecting that the cranes should be flying out towards the foyer that has kimonos and cherry blossoms in the form of Japanese woodblock with cherry blossoms, and then going into the master shower. I don't know how Scott found that, but this beautiful tile piece with cherry blossoms there. It's interesting how they focus on the minutia, and I find comfort in that because that's the way I am.
But it's also part of mid-century. The natural elements is a mid-century idea. Speaking of which, your falling water faucets,
Yeah.
which you came up with the amazing idea to offset the faucet to one side, since the water flows from the side of the faucet, with the handles to the corner. There's so many mid-century elements in both Italian and Japanese designs.
We have that Japanese teapot. That took months to be made. That was a handmade teapot, and it's a piece of art. It's not just a teapot, but it means a lot to my wife that this boat values her also. So as you flow up the boat, we're a pilot house here, you enter this military style, that's a more explorer style bridge, which is beautiful, and it's high tech and it's dark. But as you go up on the Flybridge, it became evident to me that this boat was meant for chartering, and that's not how we use it. So how do we change that? And so I started realizing that what we were missing on this particular build was storage. It was loud up there. The engine intake was coming from starboard of the jacuzzi. Even on more modern Westports, they kept doing that underneath their seats, and then the latest Westports, they moved it outside. That's something that I saw from them. It was genius, and so we decided to do the same. That freed up a whole lot of space next to the jacuzzi, got rid of the jacuzzi, and I just decided that I valued more storage. So we left there all the contacts and drainage and water for somebody who would want it. But for us, we covered it and made it into a huge storage space. Changed the settee, the sitting area up there to be L-shaped as opposed to, let's say, at an angle, and then enclosed the whole bridge. And enclosing the whole bridge was something that we valued. Really enlarged the space then, created a lot of flow, have an actual door up there now to the enclosed Flybridge. But it also allowed the crew that when we were here and using these spaces, they could also be up there. And the way that we added AC up there is actually quiet up there too.
It's cold.
It's actually too cold. Maybe we overdid it. That prompted this whole reorganization of the chillers downstairs. We have 20 tons now. Chilling the engine room, which wasn't chilled for us before. That's common on most yachts, newer yachts. But the way that we designed this space now and cleared up that space, we're able to have more toys up there. That looks great. Jet ski looks great, and all the extra storage, it worked out great.
You know, going back to the pilot house, pulling all the equipment forward and researching all of the proper angles that it needed to be, that really was a great move for you and your captain. And again, another Westport design is having that coffee station on the port side. You wanted to have your big, beautiful
Giga 10.
coffee,
I love my coffee.
coffee station there. I think we had that all designed, but then we realized that you had to be able to access the top of the coffee station. But it all worked out because we were able to have the slide out of the stone, so that was good. And it really worked out nicely there to do that.
Along with sort of this personal goals that we had, one fun part about yachting is to give your yacht a mission. And in our mission, we ended up doing something that's military. In the military, we used to have coins. These coins, we used to call them challenge coins. They were usually a little bit smaller than these. And you always carry them in your pocket. And I ended up putting on these coins sort of our mission statement and our values, sort of our core values. It's mandatory for our crew to carry this. We leave this out for our guests to let them know what we're about. And then the question becomes, what are you about? And one thing that I wanted to do with this space, which was another challenge for you that ties into every time I asked you, it had to be meaningful. We mean to raise funds through this process. At some point, there's great joy in knowing that you're giving back. So we ended up choosing Boys and Girls Club. Every port that we go in, we have a dinner for them. We charge money and ask them to pay the Boys and Girls Club directly. So we're basically just paying for the event. You know, I can't wait to have here Make-A-Wish Foundation or, you know, kids who are not as lucky as we've been and they're end of life, and watch them captain the boat, you know, and move it around and giving their family a break and giving them a day of their lives. And those are all things that they're top of the list. We can't wait to get that done. And we're finally done with this refit, so it's time to get to business. The reality of it is that life is challenging, and there was something beautiful about what you and I were achieving here. And somewhere when we figured out that the only way to get this done was to start over. Use the hull, use the shell, but to start over with the interior. The name Emilia, in Italian, one of the names is to overcome. It is the first 3 letters of my first daughter and the last 3 letters of my second daughter. So the name itself had meaning. And then that moved to our Japanese heritage. My wife is Japanese, I'm Italian, and the Great Wave of Kanagawa. And the Great Wave of Kanagawa, in a way, the original woodblock was designing to overcome. And sort of the end of the Edo period in 1868, beginning of Meiji era. So all of these things was a sense of overcoming. So we took the wave, put it as our logo, put it on the door, and again, something that had meaning. The name of the boat had meaning. The logo of the boat had meaning, the sense of overcoming. And we all want to live a life well lived. We all want to live a purposeful life. We all want to leave something behind. And some people are lucky enough to do this multitudes of time, and some of us can expect this to hopefully do it once. I wanted this to be my one time. It was a relentless pursuit of perfection, and it needed to be. Because at some point, if you're going to make decisions based purely on financial on a project like this, you're going to lose out. You're going to walk a space, you're going to introduce something that doesn't belong, that shouldn't be there, and that would have meant quitting, and that's not in my DNA. I didn't want to leave Emilia behind, just I never wanted to leave any of my comrades behind, and it meant something to me, just like my coin means something to me, and Emilia means something to me, and I can't tell you that I own it forever. If I'm like every other boat owner, it's for sale the moment I finish it and I start my next project, but damn it, it's gonna be something meaningful.